Hello, I'm Gareth Jones. Welcome to our Huddersfield Town special preview video looking ahead to the away trip at Charlton on Saturday. A game you'll hear exclusive commentary of on BBC Radio Leeds, DAB Digital Radio and 774 AM. Paul Ogden, Kieran O'Regan and Dave Fletcher, the team making the journey to the capital. All the build-up in our dedicated Huddersfield Town show starting at 2 o'clock. Oggy, I suppose the first thing to say is team news-wise. We know Nahki Wells is struggling after being subbed off in the excellent win over at Reading. Ishmael Miller did quite well, scored a goal. What do you think Powell will do team-wise?
Well, I think if he's done what we have done, Gaz, and looked at the way that Charlton struggled to cope with Derby's fluidity in their defeat on Tuesday night, I think he probably would encourage a quite attacking selection. I'd like to see Sean Scannell back in there because Charlton have got a weakness at left-back, Fox. Watch him go and have a good game now. But the way most teams struggle against Derby, but the way that Charlton were easy to get round, the tentative nature of their tackling, that's an opportunity for Huddersfield Town if they play with the conviction that they did on Tuesday. Equally, you don't want to pick players that aren't fit. Conor Cody was poorly, but I think his qualities defensively and in attack from midfield will probably give Town an even better chance than I already think they've got. I wouldn't like to see Ishmael Miller dropped because he made such a big contribution. And I would say more or less leave them be. It was quite an unusual selection on Tuesday, but it worked like a treat. And I think they can go in with real confidence against Charlton.
12th in the table, the highest they've been all season. For the rest of the campaign, how high should we be setting our targets for Town to potentially finish?
Well, I think this is the sort of thing we've heard from Leeds United recently. You know, the sky's the limit if you keep going on a run. And I'm still yearning for a string of 4 or 5 consecutive wins. It sounds fanciful, but actually they're unbeaten in 3 now, and they played very well at Bournemouth. Last Saturday against Cardiff was the worst game we've seen all season, probably, in the Championship. But there was such flair and conviction about the way they beat Reading on Tuesday night that you can push on, especially against a team that has struggled recently, Charlton. So to answer your question, I think the board and those that pay Chris Powell and the players' wages, they will probably say, right, that's more like it, 12th in the table. I don't think realistically we expect top 6. The gap's quite big already now, actually, even with 12 or 13 left to play. But I would say if Huddersfield Town have reached 12th, they should try their best to stay there. Chris Powell has lots of different tactical approaches, but he basically goes out to try and win every match. You know, so if it's possible, and it certainly should be at Charlton, there's no reason why they shouldn't add 3 points at Charlton this weekend, maybe get something at Brentford, and there are other very winnable games coming up after that.
I'll slightly disagree with you. I don't think he always sets up to win games, particularly at home sometimes, as I said, too conservative. But it's working. They're 12th in the table. They're working. They're 12th in the table. Of course, the big news really and the big talking point for Saturday's game is Chris Powell returning to Charlton, where he spent 8 years as a player, 3 as a manager, getting them promoted out of League One into the Championship. His return there to the Valley. This is what he's had to say about his, I suppose, homecoming.
I've always been emotional. Always. I should have been in Hollywood because I can cry quite easily, you know. So I hope that doesn't happen. Of course, I'm going to have a lot of family and friends there, but we need to carry on what we've been doing, especially away. That's been a real turnaround for us and a good lift for us. And I really don't want it to be a sideshow.
Chris Powell's thoughts on his return to Charlton on Saturday. He's warned he does not want it a sideshow to detract from his Huddersfield Town players performing and winning there. Is there a danger it could become a bit of a distraction?
Not for the players, it shouldn't, Gaz. Sean Scannell knows Charlton. He grew up round there himself. But the rest of the lads are not really connected in any way with Charlton Athletic, although Mark Hudson, of course, spent a short career spell there. It's a very personal homecoming for Chris Powell, and it's one that I don't begrudge him at all. He is such a part of the fabric of Charlton Athletic, even now that they're owned by the Belgian owner that owns Standard Liège and other teams in the east of Europe. Chris Powell is synonymous with Charlton's recent history. They might never have got in the Championship without his expertise. And I don't begrudge him the chance to go back and say thank you to the fans for how supportive they were at the time. But I'll say this about Chris Powell, Gaz. He is a professional football manager. He made big personal concessions to come to Huddersfield Town. And I think it's quite refreshing for him to be given a new challenge, which is completely separate from Charlton Athletic. He did play for Southend for quite a long time, and West Ham, Crystal Palace, of course, where he was an academy product. And actually, we shouldn't badge Chris Powell too much with Charlton Athletic. He's got so much more about him, to say nothing of Leicester and Derby.
And England.
And England, of course. One of his many qualities is his adaptability. And I've got a sneaking feeling that actually, much as he loves the place and he loves the fans at Charlton Athletic, he actually wants to go there and show everybody how proud he is of his Huddersfield Town team. He might even want to get it out of the way a little bit, this first visit back to Charlton, because it is going to be emotional. He's a sensitive guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if he sheds a tear. Why shouldn't he? But he's basically the Huddersfield Town manager, and he's got a lot of professional expertise now and more to build on beyond that. And he will come away from that stadium just as proud of his Huddersfield Town team if they actually get 3 points.
So Paul Ogden will be joined by Kieran O'Regan and Dave Fletcher as your BBC Radio Leeds commentary team at Charlton on Saturday. All the build-up in our dedicated pre- and post-match show for Huddersfield Town with the commentary begins at 2 o'clock live from the capital. That's on DAB Digital Radio and 774 AM.